Ellie Assembly. Step up to see flashes the ToyLeet crew. We're the kings of the game, yeah, the chosen few. From the shadows we rise with the rarest finds. Collect them, respect them, we're one of a kind. ToyLeet, we're in the streets, elite with defeats in this collectible feast. ToyLeet, never discreet, we're the heart of the beat, where our playmates meet. Check our stacks, our collection supreme. Limited editions, every collector's dream. We're the myths, we're the legends, with every drop taking over the block, we never stop. In the alleys where the echoes play, ToyLeet's the name, hear what we say. Rising, thriving, always vibing. In our realm we're always driving. ToyLeet, bringing in the street, the live ToyLeet, setting the pace. With the snap of the case and a click of the lock, ToyLeet's on top and we're ready to rock. Collecting more than just toys, we're up. We're up. We're up. ToyLeet, never the street, we're the heart of the beat, where our playmates meet. We're the tree, we're the ToyLeet, watch the throne, cause in this zone, we never admit defeat. Come for the thrill, stay for the chase, ToyLeet's in the place, set in the pace.
Stuff here. Okay, cool. So going into the main topic, right? So what we're focused on, con mastery. So, tips for attendees and vendors for a winning experience. So we kind of put together a 10 things you can do, right? No matter what side of the table you're standing on, most of these items will parlay into either side, right? And the idea here is to help you as we got Joe Fest coming on. You've got the Dallas, Dallas, whatever fest that thing is going on same weekend. You got Legions Con coming up.
Dallas Fort Worth GI Joe show or toy show, whatever they're calling it now. But
you got a Zolo Con coming up, and there's all sorts as it's getting warmer weather. There might be some outdoor stuff like toy things, all that type of stuff. So, I thought it was a good idea to put together some 10 things to go over. So the first one here is, preparation. It's key, right? So, when I think of this, there's two sides of it. So I'll talk from the vendor side, Ed, and if you want, you talk from the consumer side, so that way folks can get both sides, and obviously add in where you need to. But as a vendor, preparation's key, right? So like I experienced this last year, PowerCon. There was weeks leading up to PowerCon. I was up night and day, gluing, prepping, getting things together, setting up. And you probably remember I was sending you photos I would put my booth sample displays together that I was preparing to bring. So, one of the big things from a vendor perspective is if you've got the space, a garage, a basement, and what your booth setup's going to be, you've got a 10 by 8 section, one table, whatever, or a corner table, set it up in that empty space with some temporary tables, put your backdrop up, figure out how you're going to lay things out, right? Because, making sure you're prepared for the convention. That way, when you pack your stuff up, you can unload it accordingly. How your displays are supposed to go together, whatever it is, to some degree, it's going to help you. You'll notice if you're missing something too, and do it well in advance. So that way you're not like 3 days before, oh yeah, let me make sure this table skirt fits, or, that the backdrop I got printed is the right color branding and stuff. You want to make sure it's all in line.
Remember when you started that whole thing, I was doing, I was giving you some links and stuff to like places to get banners and stuff, right? Well,
that's where I went.
I found a lot of those because I used to be in charge of the trade shows at the job I used to do. And what we do is, we'd say, oh, we're going to have a 10 by 10 booth, 10 by 20 booth, whatever it is. This is the deal, right? Now, we used to do like huge trade shows. So a lot of the setup is done by unionized workers for the show, right? So you're not allowed to do any of the setup other than making sure your displays are where you want them to be, right? So what I'd have to do is we actually had a room that was basically like a 12 by 12 room, but between shows, I had that thing set up all the time. So I knew if we were going to promote, our new stainless steel product or a different product, because depending on what show we were going to, I'd have that set up for months before the show started, right? Then I make sure that the table runners were clean, the table runners weren't, wrinkled or ripped or whatever, right? Because it's like you said, you get to a show, next thing you know, your table runners don't work and all that stuff. It can be a disaster.
Yeah, no, it takes a ton. Sorry, I didn't mean to bring that up. I was trying to star it for us later there, Ed.
No, that's
I
all
know
right.
you normally run that, so I apologize. Yeah, I also, in my prior life, before I worked at the company I'm at now and before Hexastack, I had done a bunch of conventions for agencies that I worked with and was always setting up. I mean, I didn't take it seriously because it was like in company convention, so it wasn't like the agents worked for us, so they didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't have to overdo it. But I always want to make sure I was good. So I always got set up early. So preparation's key, man. Make sure you have all your stuff. Make a checklist. Make sure you have all that stuff organized. If you're a vendor, make sure you have all of your, make sure you have all of your hotels or, enough time in advance, trailers, totes, whatever it is. Ted from Helidope can probably vouch for this. Make sure you got a good cart.
Yeah.
Make sure you got a
no
good
blue mule.
dolly.
No blue mule.
You don't want the blue mule.
No.
You want to make sure you got something good to tote your stuff around in.
Well, I mean, I helped Ted and Aaron tear down the Helidope booth after PowerCon, and they had a couple of dollies and like a wheel cart or something, right? But yeah, I mean, like had they had a decent cart ready to go, because what they had basically rented from the U-Haul company or whoever they rented the van from, so it was like that kind of stuff. When you go into a show, like the show we used to do, we used to go to a poultry and meat processing show in Georgia for my old company. And it was at the Georgia Civic Center. And anybody that's familiar with that Civic Center, that thing is gigantic. The show was literally on the 4th floor in the basement.
Gotcha.
So, I mean, if you had stuff to bring in and you weren't ready, you didn't have it there on time, you had to bring it in. You had to bring it in through the main doors, carry it down, 4 flights of stairs or escalator for 4 flights or whatever. I mean, even standing in the line with that in an elevator is difficult, right? So yeah, definitely have everything ready to go. Move it in when it's time to move in.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's big, right? And then from the consumer side, right? Preparation. Make sure you got your hotel booked. Make sure you've got, whatever your plans are, what days you're going, who you're going to be connecting with, right? Are you going to be meeting up with people? Make sure you got all that stuff prepared ahead of time. You don't want to be winging it. If you don't have somebody's phone number and you got a bad network connection in the middle of this monster venue and you didn't pay for extra Wi-Fi or something, make sure, you've got your connections, where you guys are meeting up, plan out dinner in advance so you guys know where you're grabbing a drink or whatever. Things like that's going to help you a ton.
Yep. Real quick, what's up, Cobb? And then this dude pops in. What's
that
up,
guy?
Punk?
Oh, that's a member of ToyLeet.
That's right. And a good dolly is a solid investment. Yes, it is, Ted.
How would Ted even know what a good dolly is?
He learned the hard way.
Okay, so what he should be saying is a bad dolly makes for a miserable experience.
That's right.
Make sure you find something good.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go to him asking for dolly tips.
Maybe, don't ask him for tips on which ones to get, but he knows which ones not to get.
He's got the do not the do's.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's a good point too, as a actual attendee to a con, right? You want to make sure you got your hotel. You want to know like how far away you are, how long it's going to take you. A lot of times when the con starts at 10 a.m., there's people lined up at 8 a.m. so they can get into that con first, right? And you got to be ready for that.
When I was at PowerCon as a vendor, I was like maybe 4 or 5 blocks for the convention center. I stayed at the hotel and I had gotten all my stuff over there in the morning, drove my car back to the hotel to park it at the hotel. And then, I got on one of those little Lime scooters and I zipped over my bag on me and went back to the convention center. And I was there as early as, right in around the reasonable time that you could do set up on the morning of. And I think they opened at like 10 or 11 that morning, but I was there by like 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning trying to get setup done. And there was lines up at the door at that point.
Yeah.
You're talking 3 hours in advance. I mean, PowerCon is a freaking monster of a show.
Oh, yeah.
But like still, there was like a rat. Like I walk in the door thinking I must be near the entrance to the building, like entrance to where I need to get into. And then I find that I'm just walking the path of the line for, hundreds of people. So definitely, know that. Ask somebody who's gone to the con ahead of you, like previously, get their feedback. Hey, what time should I get there day of? Come up with a plan. So yeah, that's step one, 10 here, preparation's key. That's the first part, right?
Yep.
Then we go into the next one here, which is, know the layout. And this kind of ties to what I was just talking about. I was going in one door because I saw people, and then turns out that I had to walk all the way down the hall, around another corner, and then back another corner just to get to the entrance way for, the non-back doors from the loading dock. So it's gonna be very important, as a vendor, to make sure you know where you got to be, right? Know the layout, know who's near you, know where you're setting up, because you don't want to be carrying things around for, or pulling them around if you don't know where your setup is.
And I can tell you from going to many different cons as a vendor and as a attendee, right? You think in your head, oh, this is just down the 100 aisle, right? It is so easy to get confused and lose where something is, right? I mean, you can walk by your own booth 5 times before you realize, oh shit, there's where my table is. It's like
at PowerCon, I knew where I was supposed to be, but I still got lost multiple times when I went away from my booth throughout the days, or when I was coming in to start the days.
Yep.
The only thing that kept me on my, straight and narrow was I knew where Savage Crucible's booth was, because it was such a giant booth with that big overhead.
Oh yeah,
that was like the Northern Star to me. I was like, if I can find the Savage Crucible booth, I can then find myself 3 rows over and then one cube section up, right? And then I was like, if I come across the Valaverse booth, I've gone too far. And that's kind of like I knew like where I was. So yeah, it definitely helps to understand where you're at. It's going to help you with just getting in from the vendor side. It helps to know where the other vendors are. There might be something, as an attendee or a vendor, you might be wanting to hitting up another vendor's booth.
Yeah.
You also may be wanting to pick the booth if it's an option when you're setting up, in advance. If you know where other people are, for instance, I wanted to be near where the Hella Dope Boys were. So when I contacted PowerCon, I was like, hey, can you put me near? Is there anything near this booth? Like, I want an open booth near these guys around. Just because it was my first time going to Ohio, first time around a bunch of this stuff. I wanted some people that I was comfortable hanging out with. And boy, did it make a world of difference those 3 days, right? Yeah. We had the whole crew coming through there, and people were stopping by. But from an attendee, it makes sense to know the layout, right? Because use exclusives, for example.
Oh yeah.
If you didn't rush over to the Four Horsemen booth, you might not get the exclusive or the Valaverse. Yeah. Things like that.
That's one thing I think PowerCon made nice for the people, is that the exclusive are not at the booths, right? So that made it a little bit easier, because a lot of cons, the exclusives are at the booths, right? So you're going to be rushing to that, Four Horsemen, or
well, the Four Horsemen were at their booth, right?
No, they didn't have the orangutan, or not the orangutan. They didn't have their exclusive at their booth.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that.
But they had a whole bunch of other stuff, right? So that's why everybody was rushing there, because they wanted
that. Makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah. So make sure you know the layout. It's going to be important from a number of things. Know where the bathroom are, so you don't want to get stuck in the wrong.
Valaverse did have their exclusive at the booth, though, because they had they had that crimson swarm, right? So that was definitely at the booth. Maybe Four Horsemen did, but still. Right.
I thought Four Horsemen did, but there was a vendor reserve off to the side. Yeah. Like you got it differently. You had to go somewhere else to get the vendor reserves that were pulled for other vendors. Yeah. But know where the poop line is. You don't want to get stuck in the wrong one. Ask Ted.
Yep. You don't want to get stuck in the wrong poop line. That's for sure.
Awesome. Number 8, set a budget. And this isn't just the budget for what you plan to spend on the toys. This, like, from a vendor perspective, this is the budget for your hotel. This is the budget for your booth. As a vendor, you need to make sure, these aren't cheap. Some of these booths are fairly expensive, right? So make sure that, you've budgeted appropriately. And when you're going, if you're selling something, I went to PowerCon. I wasn't selling per se anything those days. I was promoting. So I didn't, I knew going in, I wasn't going to walk. I was walking out in the hole. But I also knew that I was trying to promote my brand and the product, right? Yep. And I thought it was a good place. But if I was selling product, you need to evaluate, is this a place I'm going to make any money? If so, how much is the booth? How much do I have to sell to cover the cost of the booth first and foremost? Yeah, some of it's getting your name out there, but you want to make sure as a vendor, you're prepared for that expense.
Yeah. You also need to know, right? Like, who else is there? Like Hella Dope, Ted and Aaron, they've talked about it on their stream, and they've talked about it with you and I individually and stuff, right? When we were there. They sell, Four Horsemen stuff. They sell Action Force stuff, right? At PowerCon.
And AWOC.
Yeah, and AWOC, right? And the goblin things. What the hell are puppets called? drawing a blank.
Oh,
Boglins.
Boglins.
Boglins, right?
And
All
McFarland's.
those, yeah, all four of those actual companies were there selling stuff at their own booth. So it's like, as a vendor, you know, yeah, you want to have your shelf full, you want to have a full, you know, booth, but it's like, you know, Ted and Aaron would probably bring less Four Horsemen stuff, knowing that they were going to be there next time, right? Because you're just not going to compete, except like,
Yeah.
you know, unless it's something really old that they're just not going to have, you know. So,
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, because at the end of the day, there's a specific pricing model how Four Horsemen works with the retailers and stuff,
Yep.
and you're competing against the manufacturer. And at the end of the day, they're making money off the selling it to a
Yep.
third party vendor like Helidope or whatever. So their price point that they can charge a consumer is going to be less than what they're able to, you know, set
Absolutely.
forth for the others.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's you know, so that's the perspective.
I will
you know,
say, as a customer or a attendee to a convention, setting a budget is important. I didn't spend outside of my budget, but I could have easily spent outside my budget if I wasn't.
Oh, it can run away from you.
Yeah,
it can absolutely run away from you.
I went Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And Friday, I only bought one or two things. And then Saturday morning, I bought a shit ton of stuff, right?
Gotcha.
But then Sunday, when I was walking around, it was like, you know, I had a couple $100 left that I had budgeted. And I was like, ooh, you know, so I started becoming really, you know, reserved on what I wanted to get, right? Yep. But it was like, I kind of had a list of the things that I was going to get when I went there. So that definitely helps with the budget. You know, if you know you're going to get, you know, the Four Horsemen this, or the Valaverse this, or the, you know, NECA this, or whatever it is that you're looking for, it's kind of easier to set your budget. That if you don't find that, you know, $50, $100 figure, you can use it for something else. But
exactly,
you know, definitely, along with the budget, make a plan for what you're going to spend it on. Because
prioritize your wants.
Go there and get crazy, and the next thing you know, you go to the Four Horsemen booth, and it's like, ooh, I really wanted that, but damn, I overspent already. So,
absolutely. Yeah, and I mean that's huge, right? You know, but that's just at the convention. That's getting into the convention. You got food, you got hotel stay, you got drinks, you got other things, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you might have parking, you know, things like that.
Yeah,
so a lot of things
expensive
to consider. Yeah, make sure you have your budget aligned, and sit and put the money where you can. Save money for this one's huge, right? So Joe says here, he says save money for con exclusives. That's huge, right? Especially for these bigger events, PowerCon, Legion's Con, you know, all those ones. You know, they've got very highly sought after convention exclusives. ZoloCon, like they all have these very much wanted things. Make sure, you know, and I will say some things like PowerCon, I thought what they did was really cool. They did pre-orders of the convention items, so you could buy them in advance if you wanted them, if you were a ticket holder. ZoloCon did, I think, the same thing. Some of them, they will have a surplus that potentially goes on sale after the convention if they don't sell out. But if it's a highly sought-after figure, you may miss out if you don't budget and plan for it.
And it used to be, you know, it was really only like the big cons that would have exclusive,
like San Diego Comic-Con.
Used to have now most of them have some kind of exclusive from somebody, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's what makes it, you know, it's a huge draw in for those conventions,
people for sure.
Which I mean, speaking to that, right, just that piece, that's one of the reasons. I'm sure there was a number of reasons that haven't necessarily been disclosed, but one of the reasons that we heard the promoters for PowerCon said they weren't doing a 2024 was because the time to market and get a production quality, you know, set of exclusives and confirm all that wasn't enough lead time. So you know. That comes into play too. So, you know, those things are huge, right? If you don't have exclusives at PowerCon, could you imagine? I mean, I'm sure it was still been a huge get together, but those exclusives get everybody chatting.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Set a budget, have lots of money, sell a soul.
Sell your soul to the devil.
Yeah. The next piece here is communication, right? So like, you know, as a vendor, you know, make sure you train your team. You know, if you're not there by yourself and, you know, you bring someone, you know, I brought, you know, Son of Wonder, as he's referred to now by Jim Largo over there. I brought Son of Wonder to the booth one of the days. You know, heck, I had you, Ed, you know, there standing in for me. I had Mega J standing in for me at times. You know, you guys knew the spiel. You knew what we were talking about. So you guys are able to speak to it educatedly. Make sure your team that you're there with, anyone that's covering for your booth is aware so that they communicate, you know, because when you're at these booths,
everybody for you, right? You were just promoting, right? So if you're selling something, you know, you got to make sure the person knows how to use the use
Yep.
your scanner, your money taker, whatever it is, right? So it can be complicated.
Yeah. And to me, when you're dealing with sales, I don't know I don't know the exact number I would put around it. I always kind of look at things when you're selling something. Is part of it like what? Like maybe like 60% of it's the product and the
Yep.
other 40% is the experience.
Yep.
That's the smell when you open it, it's the usage of it, how it works, but it's also you and I communicating together. How did
Oh yeah.
like how did you and I connect? There's been a couple people I connected with at PowerCon that I've reconnected with since and kept in touch with that still reach out to me, and I communicate with on a regular basis, just that I didn't know prior because of the way I communicated with them. Because
Yep.
I listened, I talked, I chatted. It wasn't just about my stuff, right? It
Yeah.
was just having a conversation. So communication's key. You're going to build lifelong customers and potentially friends.
Oh yeah.
Conventions.
I got a guy who does a lot of local cons around here. He's an artist. I showed off some of his paintings and stuff on the show when Luke and I were doing it,
Okay.
And he does some of the Buffalo cons. He was just at the Steel City Con down in Pittsburgh, PA last weekend,
Okay.
And he does handmade paintings of, famous people, right? From movies and stuff, right?
Okay.
And he charges, it's hand painted, right? So 300, 400, 500, depending how big the painting is.
Yeah.
He sells a ton of it. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that he is such an approachable dude, right? And even like the stars that he paints for, at Steel City Con, they had like a Breakfast Club reunion with, Judd and a couple of, what's the chick that was Claire in Breakfast Club, and, all those people, right?
Yeah.
And they were all over at his booth checking out his paintings and, bought a couple of them. He usually gives us the star of the painting without, taking the cash for it because it's just
That's
his
cool.
thing, right? But that's the type of guy he is. It's all about,
Yeah.
for him, it's actually the, connecting with his fans and connecting with the people that are going to have his art in his house, right?
Yep. Absolutely. It's huge, right? Like make it an experience. Communicate. Like there was a guy that was next to me in the booth at PowerCon, and he did a lot of art, like almost like I don't want to say Sour Patch Kids, but they're the what were those little like the exploding
He did the
head-
Garbage Pail Kids.
Garbage Pail Kids, thank you. So Garbage Pail Kids, and he did
Yeah.
skateboards and all sorts of things like that. I kind of checked in with him when we first got there, and I actually had looked up who was next to me when I was checking out, the floor plan, right? Like going back to one of the previous things, know where you are, know the layout. I checked into the vendor that was next to me, see like, okay, who is this guy? What's he into? And checked his Instagram out. And I was like, this guy's got some cool stuff. I ended up snagging some of his pins because I'm a pin guy.
Yep.
So I love his little enamel pins. And he was a cool dude. We just chatted, asked how things were going, and just kind of chatted back and forth. So it's good to build that communication. He's big into art. I took his information in case there's anything I ever need help with and maybe connect with in the future.
Yep.
Use it as an opportunity to connect with everybody. Kind of leads into the next one directly. And communication as a customer too, right? As a customer, it's important, right? Communicate with somebody. Sometimes there's deals to be had. Don't be the jerk that's like, hey, can I save this and can I save that? And we'll try to haggle too much at these things, right? Because those guys have paid a lot of money to be there. They're trying to, get by. Let them offer you a deal, but communicate with them like, hey, man, I only have $50 in my budget. I really want that. Any chance you can cut $5 off? We call it a deal. Like communicate. Be real. Don't be a jerk, and have a good open form of communication.
That's one thing you got to remember at a con as a customer when it comes down to communication, right? Is they've already invested the money in the inventory that they're carrying, especially like the vendors that are carrying toys and stuff to sell, right? Products.
Yep.
They're already invested in the product, and then they just spent $1,000, $5,000, $10,000 on that booth, depending on what size what size the con is. So if you got a deal and you want to wheel and deal, it's not harmful or hurtful or being rude to approach it, but approach it, with grace, right?
Exactly.
Don't be a dick about it, right?
Exactly. Don't be like, because these people, paid $30 for the figure already, put it on the rack, and they got to pay $500 to have a booth there. So they got to make back that money. And if you're asking them to sell it for less than or at market, at cost, like I mean, I'm not saying that they should mark it up a ton, but there's a balance there. And most vendors will work with you. I remember I was walking around at PowerCon and my son wanted a couple Star Wars figures. And I said, okay, bud, you can get 2 things, right? And there was this one booth that we were at and he had a bunch of like open stuff and like some older like Black Series, kind of very, inexpensive. And he's like, well, and Chase had 3 of them in his hand and he's like, oh, I don't know which one. And the guy's like, well, I want to say he wanted $10 each for him.
Yeah.
And, I was only going to let him get 2, which is 20. And he's like, hey, I could do, vendor offered me, hey, I could do it for 25. And I never mentioned price before that.
Yep.
I was like, that's really cool. And a lot of vendors will do that,
Yeah.
And it just work with them. They're going to be good people. Communication's key.
Yep.
And
if you want deals at cons, go shopping on the last day of the con, because that's when everybody's trying to get rid of their stuff so they don't have to take it home.
The amount of stuff do you remember how much stuff that was just landing on my booth from a couple of the booths around me, because I had a little dude with me, and like they were like, oh, here, he might like this and he might like this, and we got all sorts of things. So yeah, it was cool. Next thing is networking. This kind of parlays from the previous piece with communicating. Networking, right? My big thing for going to PowerCon was to network. As a vendor, wanted to network, share the information, get it in front of people. There was YouTubers, there's customers, just kind of getting the brand awareness in front of people. But it goes beyond just the consumers, but also the person next to you. After hours events, there was a network gathering, where a bunch of the guys from kind of like our tour community were getting together. Some of us hung out in one place, some of us hung out one place, moved on to the next, and had the chance to I had the chance to meet and just kind of be a fly on the wall while Hella Dope was having chats with Shartimus and with Bobby and Laser Pants, and that was just cool. Like it was just like it was just a chill kind of low key situation, just having conversations. It was cool to be a fly on the wall and just listen to some of the inside information, and I used that opportunity.
And I think a big thing, like you just said in the beginning, was like the guy in the booth next to you, right? When I did industrial sales and we did the cons, I was at the booth by myself, other than the customers coming in most of the time. Yeah. Our sales guys were there because I was in marketing, so our sales guys were there, but they were out networking with, buyers and sellers and stuff like that. I was at the booth, man, in the booth by myself. So not knowing the dude next to me and not knowing the dude over here, it would have made for a really long, 3-day
and awkward
event, right?
And awkward, because you'd look at each other and try not to look at each other, because you'd look up and be like, oh shit, he saw me looking. So yeah. Totally.
And a lot of those guys at those at the cons and stuff, they're just like you, So if you're single at your booth and you need someone to cover, hey, anybody stops by, tell them I'll be back in 2 seconds. I got to run and grab a drink, or I got to run and grab a bathroom break or whatever. Most of those guys are cool. So it's like, that's the best way to do it for sure.
Well, I mean, I've been at conventions before beyond just the toy community, and, I'm working a booth by myself and nobody traveled with me, and the booth next to me, we were just chatting, got to know each other. And, they had 2 or 3 people at it, and they'd run out and grab a drink for, their group, and they'd come back. Hey, I grabbed a water for you, or I grabbed a coffee. Hope and, it's just that network. And establishing that network in this community is going to be helpful. Like, there's a really great community out there, and just kind of expanding your network within it's going to help you, whether it be a vendor or a consumer. As a consumer, establishing networks, one, who'd you meet up with? What new friends did you make? Did you have cool? Hey, you know what? If you're into stuff that's hitting retail and it doesn't hit the East Coast, it's great to have somebody out west that you made friends with, want to pick it up for you. So, there's a ton of benefits to having a network mutually.
And the whole Hella Dope store got started at PowerCon 2 years ago, right? Because Ted and Aaron were networking while they were attendees at PowerCon. They went and talked to Jason from Sparrow and a couple other people.
Yep. Going into the next one there. Oh, you should do another list called Awkward Con Moments.
That'll be an after show.
Yeah. So Con Mastery tip number 5 here: stay energized, stay hydrated. Right? Make sure you have some water. I will say that, if you can't do stay energized or stay hydrated, make sure you got a booth 2 booths down from you with a guy who's willing to grab C4 every morning and stash it at your booth for you, because then you stay energized and hydrated. So a shout out to Hella Dope again, because Ted hooked me up daily with those to ensure that I was both energized and hydrated each day. So you want to make sure you're hydrated. There's a lot of walking, a lot of talking.
Ted's wife had them guys set, man. Peanut butter and jellies.
Dude. There. I hadn't had peanut butter and jellies in a year. He busted out, and I was like, and I'm so used to just going to the cafe and buying something at these things.
Yeah.
man, I think I ate at the cafe day one, I think, while you covered for me maybe.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was day two. I might have taken a little dude out there and grabbed lunch with him or something. I don't
Yeah. I
remember.
can't remember. Was it one of those days?
Yeah, one of the days you did that, and then we had freaking all the next day. Ted's like, "Oh, hey, are you hungry?" And he busts out these loaded PB and J's, dude. And I was like, "These." I went back to the hotel later, and I was like, telling my wife, I was like, "Man, I was like exhausting day," but Ted showed up in the moment when you needed him, and he had PBs and J's, dude. And I don't eat those on the regular normally, so it was like just hit home. I was like, "Ooh, this is good."
Mrs. Dark Claw's peanut butter jellies have become world famous almost now.
It's that nostalgia feel. I
Yeah.
mean, there were plastic toys and all of that stuff, and now I'm getting the kitty pack lunch sandwich. It was great, dude. I loved it. So it was awesome. So yeah, have food, have drinks, stay energized, come planned. Lesson I learned just being at that one is I should probably bring a damn cooler and
Yep.
bring my own crap, so that I can take care of myself.
Yeah,
So that would
con food
definitely be
gets
something I
expensive,
did.
right?
Oh,
The,
you can going back to budgeting. You can
Yep.
burn through your money real fast if you're buying food and drinks at those things.
Punk and I went for lunch on Saturday when he was there and at the con.
Yep.
And I just got a cup of coffee. Lawrence got 2 pieces of cardboard pizza and a drink. But
Yep.
the pizzas, I think, I can't remember what the pizzas were, but they weren't that bad at that con. But they were still, for a couple of frozen pizzas, expensive, right? It's like going to the movie theater. They're they charge you because they know they got you.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it was a good time, but you gotta be careful. And I gotta tell you, man, you bust out an old school PB and J, dude. I felt like a champ after that. It had all the protein, had that little sugary sweet and a little fluffiness. Oh, it was good.
And there's a lot of cons you go to where you're not allowed to bring in stuff, even as a vendor, other than waters and stuff. And there's a lot of cons as attendees. You're not allowed to bring in anything.
And that goes back to prepare. Know the rules. Know what you can do and what you can bring, and bring what you can because save you a ton of money. Yeah. So that's number 5, kind of narrowing it down here. Number 4, and this goes back to some of the stuff we talked about.
Mega
promotion
deal.
and deals, right? So, as a vendor, have your deals. Know what you're willing to do. Run something, because using the example of PowerCon, using the example of other conventions, you're going to be competing with other vendors that have the same products as you or similar. So who's going to give the best price? Maybe it's not that you can give the best price. Maybe it's the best packaging. Maybe it's the best approach. Maybe it's like Helidope offering to do things like Ohio's best pizza. Thanks, Punk. So nothing like a New York slice, though.
Nothing like a New York slice of pizza. Absolutely.
But like Helidope, what they did a great deal. They were promoting shipping. They're homegrown. They were right down the road. You didn't have to buy the product from them, I think, right? I think that they were willing to, if you had exclusives or things like that and you had flown in, I think they were willing to ship things out for you on, so you didn't have to worry about it later. Like, offer that, going back to my whole thing, 60% the product, the other 40% is the experience. Give that next level thing. They might have went and bought 4 Horsemen figures from another booth. 4 Horsemen themselves, but 4 Horsemen wasn't offering necessarily the back home shipping. Well, if you're flying back to another state, you don't want to grab and package all that. If you don't have to, and pay an extra luggage bag, you might be able to ship it home a little bit easier. So give them that experience, and that's what Helidope did. And I respect the hell out of people who are coming up with ingenious ways to promote themselves.
Yeah, it was great idea for them guys, right? We can ship it for you. We got a shipping system set up. Give us your address. Give us what it is. We'll send you a bill for the shipping invoice, and you don't have to worry about it, right?
Exactly.
Those cons, a lot of those cons you go to have UPS centers or FedEx centers right in the convention center, so people can send their stuff home. But that shit is expensive. They do not,
marking it up.
Yeah, they don't promote it as a fair shipping rate. It's con prices.
Yeah. And the experience, and I'm not one to champion Disney and Disney World and stuff a ton, but when we went there a couple years ago, freaking random.
What's up, Radnam?
Yeah. With Disney, one of the things when we went there in 2022 is that they had the ability, I could buy the lightsabers, or I could buy the Guardians of the Galaxy stuff that I wanted in there, and stuff that the boys or my daughter wanted, things like that, and we could just ship it home, and it was there like 2 days after we got back. I won't say it was all that cheap, but it was convenient, and that was what I was paying
That's
for.
what it is, right?
Convenience. So that was tremendously helpful. And at the end of the day, what would it cost me to figure out a way to buy another luggage tote to tote it back? Sometimes it's convenient. So being that vendor that can offer a premier service at a fair price, even if you didn't sell the product, you now left an impression with them that, hey, these guys, they're good. They're good people. They're doing good things and
Yep.
trying to help out. So offer something, that mega deal, some sort of promotion, buy two, get something, things like that. And then
Right.
as a consumer, look for those deals. Help
Yep.
support those guys.
And you had a deal going on, right, at PowerCon. So you had your stickers or your business cards, and if you get,
Yep. And the raffle, register the raffle.
Yep.
So I did some raffles. Yep. So
Anything
keep
to
your
bring
eye on-
people to your booth, right? That's the thing. You got to bring traffic to your booth. If you don't have
And
traffic, there's no point in being there.
Yeah, you want to draw people in. It's your personality, it's your product, it's the display, it's everything. And when you see what I'm bringing to the next PowerCon for my booth, it is going to be freaking awesome.
Are
Like
you
the
getting
stuff
one of
that
those
I've
AI
collected.
booth babes?
No. It's a VR booth, babe. No, I'm just kidding.
They do have
No.
those.
Oh, I'm sure they do. No,
Yeah.
that's not what it is. But it's going to be cool. It's going to be gimmicky. It's going to draw people in. I think it'll be interesting. But I've got a whole bunch of things that I purchased in preparation for the convention circuit that I plan to do. Backdrop, things like that. A bunch of stuff that'll make it an experience.
Well,
Not
last
just
year I did the con for the company I worked for. They had AI powered. They're holographic people.
Oh, okay.
It's just a projector that sat on the ground. You programmed what you wanted it to stay, and it was just a holographic person standing there doing your pitch all day long.
So it was like Cortana from Halo.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was crazy, dude.
That's awesome.
Expensive, but it was so cool.
Yeah.
It's like,
so
lady's
promote,
like,
off
your company into this? I'm like, my company wouldn't spend that much money on a booth. That's what I'm for.
Yeah, a lot of things when you think about it, right, is when you use the word promotions, we're not just talking promotion deals, but we're talking promotions as in like, do your deals, get promotion, draw people in, get that person to come up to your booth. You're only going to get 30 seconds. You might, in some cases, maybe somebody will stick around and listen a little bit longer, but know your spiel. I mean, you heard me at the PowerCon. I had that spiel down. It was the same thing regurgitated about 1 billion times and by Sunday I was exhausted and I was like, this is but I perked up, hydrated, energized, and drove forward, right?
Yeah, if you're marketing stuff or trying to promote stuff at a booth, at a con especially, right? It's an elevator pitch. You're going to have a 10 to 20 second elevator pitch that you got to have down, ready to roll. And that's what's going to, because guy's going to walk up and be, what's the deal with this? And if you're like, well, he's going to be, oh, all right, we'll see you later.
I'm out.
Yep.
Exactly. Yep. So promotion deals, things like that. Then, just some safety, security, right? This is a top tip, right? You want to be safe. You make sure you lock your stuff up. Nice things, some things like PowerCon, even Legions Con, the facility is, locked at a certain point. So folks can't, everybody has to clear the convention floor. Only after a certain time is the convention floor open. Make sure you're locking up any valuables, taking things away. If you've got an iPad, a tablet, things like that you're using to do transactions, lock it up, or even better yet, pack it up and take it with you if you can. Those types of things. As a consumer, make sure, you're keeping your wallet close, not leaving things out loose. Don't set things down that you can't keep within a hand's reach away and grab it. You don't want to lose things. You like to hope that everyone there is good, but going back to something that I think Punk said a little while ago, right? He goes, he said something about assholes. I saw it.
He said not everybody in the community's good.
Yeah, and a lot of assholes in the community too. Be careful who you make friends with. So don't make friends with the guy who's going to steal from you. So
I tell you, I felt so safe at PowerCon once Punk showed up. I was walking around with little Wolverine, man. I was
oh yeah, I mean,
Honey Badger. I didn't have anything to worry about.
You got the biggest little dude in Ohio there. That's
right.
You're good.
Who was miserable because he was in Ohio, so it was even better.
Yeah. So, just take into consideration, again, this is preparation, planning. Make sure you got your stuff locked up. Make sure you're bringing things. I had a bag. My bag I kept with me the whole time. It was right there underneath me, the whole time. Kept all my personal belongings in there that I needed, and that's the stuff I took with me every night. All the other stuff that was on display, I knew when they were closing the con down, it was secure. Folks shouldn't be going in there.
That goes back to the networking too, right? Because if you're leaving your booth for a little while, you don't have to shut everything down and lock it up. If the dude next to you is cool, right? He'll watch your shit for you.
Or you could have some douchebags that are there the night before you, and they can be throwing shit all over your booth the night before, just stacking boxes.
Those are the assholes in the community Punk was talking about, right? Those guys that just trash your booth for no reason at all without even asking.
Yeah, just throwing shit on. Hey, you coming in? No, perfect. We got our shit everywhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, the safety security. Also, another thing is, and I'm just could take it as a dad. If you're in an area you're not familiar with and stuff, try not to travel alone. That's just something I tell my kids, and I'll share it with everybody. Ohio's a sketchy place. There's people like Ted and Aaron in there. You don't know if you're going to end up getting home that night. So,
Rats the
just be
size of
careful.
dogs.
Exactly.
And stray meth addicted hookers and all sorts of things.
Yep. Next one here is follow-ups, right? So you're going to make a lot of connections if you did the previous steps we talked about, whether it be as a consumer or a vendor. You're going to end up having that connection with people. You're going to get leads. You might potentially find out about other conventions. You might be invited to take part in other conventions, things like that. If you're doing a good job, folks like you, right? There might be somebody who runs conventions in another state or something, and they may be like, hey, your stuff would do good there. Why don't you come out? Follow up on those leads, connect with those customers, ask what you did good, ask what you did bad. One of the things I did was I created a survey type thing for people to register on. I put it on my QR code on my LinkedIn, my link tree, so that people could go in there, register for a raffle, and it gave me their information so I could follow up at a later time, get feedback, insight from people who had taken the time out to listen to me or check the stuff out. So it's always good to do that.
A lot of those bigger cons that I used to do for the industrial market had like scanners, right? So guys that have their badges on, they walk up to your booth, scan your badge, they sent out their information right to a spreadsheet for you. So when you got back to your job, I was sending them out marketing, materials and all sorts of stuff, right?
Exactly.
You got to follow up.
Yep, follow up. It doesn't end when the con ends, right? Yep. There's a lot of cleanup afterwards, and part of that cleanup is following up on those connections you made, and any activities. Maybe you promised someone something, or you said you'd go design something or do something, or you get back to them. Make sure you follow up. Again, it's going to establish your credibility and the faith that folks are going to have in you. And last but not least, gather that feedback and reflect on it, right? So, the follow-ups, you've now got feedback. Going back to my survey statement I made previously, sit back. What I recommend doing, and this is something that I've been doing for a while now, is, I'll just pull it up on my here, is I journal. Try to journal every day. I got a couple things that I focus on, but one of the things that's good to do is journal after the convention. It's a long weekend. You're exhausted. If you're a journaler, you're probably not journaling the night of, after, maybe the next day, but do it really quick. Give yourself a chance to jot down things. And when I say journaling, some people journal like that in more of a prescriptive way. And then there's other people who may just want to jot down their feedback and reflect on it at a later time. You're going to be burnout. You're going to be exhausted. And you're not going to want to think about it for a little while. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, that might be a good idea, is have people on your show with, especially money bags that don't have to work anymore.
Right. Yeah, I know. Guys that have lots of free time, they won't have any problem showing up and staying late,
Exactly. Yeah. What I would say is, write down your immediate thoughts as soon as the convention as you can after it ends, right? And things that you did well, things you think went bad, because some of the stuff you're going to forget until you're unpacking a box or packing up a box the next time to go to the next one. You're like, oh shoot, I forgot this thing. Or
especially if it's going to be a con you're going to go to every year. When I started doing cons for the one website I was working for, we did the first Nickel City Con, and it was a good, we're only there to promote our website and our stuff, right? And we took some notes afterwards, and we thought about some things when we were at the show, but we never took down any notes or wrote it down. It was like, then the next year it came up, and we were all like, oh, what the hell was it we said that we weren't gonna do what we were gonna do, right? If you have it written down and thought out, it's like you're good to go. You got it.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, so that's the piece, right? Take those notes down. Then a couple days later, go through and make sure you revisit them, because clear thoughts, clear head, rested mind might help you with putting some things back in perspective. Because in some cases, if you've had a bad con, you didn't get out of it what you wanted. Maybe you were in the hole from the con, things like that. But maybe it was because of certain things. Maybe it's because you were a booth that was selling Four Horsemen stuff, and Four Horsemen was there, and they were undercut you, and they had limitless supplies. So yeah. But next time, I'm not bringing my Four Horsemen stuff, whatever, it might be that, right?
That also can kind of go back to the preparation, right?
Yep. It goes full circle.
If you are at a booth, I know one time I was at a booth when I was doing the industrial sales stuff, that we were in this back corner that no traffic even came through, so it was like, by the time you got any traffic, the show was over, and we had no promotion whatsoever because we're just in a bad spot.
Yeah.
So it goes back to preparing, knowing the map so you know where you're going to be, so you can pick a high traffic or a better trafficked area, as opposed to something in the back corner that no one's going to see.
Yep. I mean, it goes back to, two different things, right? It goes back to the vendor or the consumer as an attendee, right? Are you, jot down your experience, jot down the pros and cons, then take a couple days and just don't think about it again, and then come back to it after, reflect on it, right? And then decide what was good, what was bad, especially if you plan to attend, like you said, that con again in the future, one way, like I said, either side of the table. And, make note of that. So the future, when you're preparing, you can look back at these notes and go, oh yeah, I need to do this, or I need to do that. Or, oh, they don't let me bring water in there, so I need to bring a hydration pack and hide it under my backpack and, run that up through my shirt so that I can, serve myself alcohol in a hydration pack or whatever it is.
gotta have my whiskey.
Exactly. So, whatever it might be. Right. So, do that. I like to journal and stuff. It's a reflective experience and whatnot. So using that for those conventions helps too, both as a consumer and a vendor. So kind of that's what we put together as our top 10 con mastery tips to make sure, you enjoy the experience at the conventions. Again, regardless.
Anybody has any other thoughts on that or whatever, drop it in the chat, drop a comment,
Yeah. And while they're doing that, Ed, I'm going to go back here. I'm just going to throw up a little preview of what we're looking at for next week's show. So there it is. I got it.
A bra you can wear that hides 2 liters of fluid with a straw.
I've seen that.
It's good to know.
So for next week, Beyond the Shelf, integrating toys into everyday life. So I thought this one, and Ed, I know I'm throwing this one at you without discussing it. I thought this one would be a good one for you, as you like to take your stuff out into the real world. And I don't take my stuff out of my house, not because I'm afraid of being embarrassed or anything, but it's because I don't want my stuff to get dirty and I don't want it to get wet or broken or ruined. So I'm very hesitant.
You sound like that guy named Punk. He's always so afraid to take his stuff everywhere.
He took it to Disney.
Yeah, he lost stuff, so probably he'll never take it out again now.
Yeah. So next week we'll be talking about I said,
it. Great topic, dude. Great topic.
Integrating toys into your everyday life. So that's where we're at, man.
Now, but remember this. Let your toys breathe. Do this. Toys on the desk. It's the new habitat. ToyLeet Takeover. We're loving that. It's a stack high in the air where it's at. Everywhere's a playground for Mr. Wonderful. In the office, living room, let them breathe. Action fix hit the trail through the mud and undersell. It's the ToyLeet life. Beyond the shelf we prevail. Figures and cents in perfect place. With extra stack we own the space. From battle seeds to epic quests, our collection's always at its best. Extra stack high in the air where it's at. Everywhere's a playground for Mr. Wonderful. In the office, living room, let them breathe. Action fix it, the trail through the mud and undersell. It's a ToyLeet life. Beyond the shelf we prevail. So like, subscribe, and join our crew. Check us on Instagram, we've got news for you. Back the stack, it's where dreams come true. ToyLeet Takeover, we're here for you. Thanks for tuning in, feel the vibe. Toys in our world come alive. Next week, same time, don't miss the ride. ToyLeet Takeover, the fun's worldwide. ToyLeet Takeover, stay